Chris, thanks for coming down, man. You're the guitarist, originally the bass player of Pyrexia from Long Island. Let me know if I got that right.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, man. We're just gonna start off, man. We want you to give a kind of a history of your involvement in the death metal scene, but even going back further, man. I know you're born in Brooklyn, right?
Born in Brooklyn, yeah.
Yeah. So how long did you live in Brooklyn before they trucked it out to Long Island?
12 years.
12 years old. So you were 12 years old in Brooklyn.
Yes.
And then you moved there. So it's safe to say you got a little bit maybe of your foundation in music and things like that out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Growing up.
First 5 or 6 albums I ever got were in that time era.
What were they?
I got a good history, man. It's crazy because I love all kinds of music, but you got to remember these were the things that were, radio. If it was on the radio, you heard it back then because it was only 3 stations or, The first thing ever, which this one was more for the artwork, was Kiss Destroyer. That was in 76, I think, or 78. That was the first album I asked for. And I had a little tape recorder. My father made me side 1. He never recorded side B for me. But I got side A from Destroyer when I think I was 5 years old. But then
it's pretty tight, though.
Yeah, no, it was good. It was
that's rock and roll.
It was Gene, But then this was how we made a hard left was Devo, Whip It.
Oh, all right.
Devo, Whip It got me, man.
Wow.
Yeah, it struck me. And I had that album. I didn't dig any of the other songs on it, but I listened to it. Blondie was big for me back then for a minute. And then, what do you call it? Grandmaster Flash or Sugar Hill Gang, man. That shit.
Yeah.
That shit hit me, and that's how it started. It didn't get metal till probably middle school, and then it was the artwork of Iron Maiden that sucked me in.
Yeah.
And then I went down the Maiden hole and loved every album. And
getting into metal is it's a strange off the bat.
Right.
Like you come out and you're coming out of your mom and you're so soft, and you grow up and you're still softer.
Still soft.
But then
you're looking for something hard, though. You're looking for something...
Exactly. Once you get pushed down the hill a few
around
times.
the edges, right. You get a couple bumps and bruises.
Yeah. Then you start looking. So it's like after 13, 14, the
artwork sucks you in,
Exactly.
The artwork sucks you in. It did for me.
Yeah.
Especially in the early days, the covers would match the music, There was... If you like the cover... more than likely you liked the music that was on that record.
Yeah. I remember the first time I saw the Butchered at Birth album cover on a cassette tape that a friend of mine had when I was in probably 7th or 8th grade. And at that point, I was into Iron Maiden. I was into those bands that are a little bigger, man. And I was really into horror movies all my life as a kid, man.
Always.
And Butchered at Birth just put the horror movies and the heavy metal 1 + 1 is 2, man. And it clicked right from there. I mean, it scared me as a kid too. It was Halloween time when I saw that Butchered at Birth and read the lyrics, man. Oh my god!
End of the day, shit's not for kids, but
of course.
If you're curious, it's for you.
Yeah, man. It's it was like I was saying before, man. You never you never hear that one death metal album where you're like, all right, that's it, I'm done with death metal now. I solved the mystery.
No.
It's just this wormhole you go down. It's the heavy hole you go down.
It's like books. They're like all different books.
Yeah, man. So, Chris, at what point does the fascination with music turn into I got to play a musical instrument? Is that still in Brooklyn?
No. That was further on.
So the family moves out to Long Island. Where in Long Island did the family settle in?
Setauket, East Setauket.
East Setauket, so out east.
I went to Jolinas Junior High School.
Okay, all right. And at what point do you pick up an instrument?
That would be probably around the age 15. Pick up an instrument probably the age 13, 14. That's when I started playing guitar. That was just in the bedroom doing AC/DC covers and, Metallica covers and things like that. Jimi Hendrix, Zeppelin, Maiden, Judas Priest, doing all that stuff by myself. But when I was about 15, when I got into high school... That's when I hooked up with other musicians that started jamming and stuff. That
was going to be my next question. At that point, are you kind of like when you're out in Setauket now, the kid from Brooklyn? Are you like the outcast?
Yeah.
Are there a lot of other metalhead kids? Do you get along with them?
At first, no. That's exactly, and I have the same friends I have now that I did then because there was only a few of us. It was like a very jock-oriented school, a lot of athletics. I'm not a huge guy. I wasn't making the football team. So I just gravitated towards music, It was more like, back then it was more like a jock dirtbag thing, It was like the movies back then, Jean jackets on one side and football jerseys on the other. But music was kind of a big thing in my high school. There was huge murals of Jimi Hendrix and The Doors, Zeppelin, and I just gravitated towards music and started jamming with a couple people, and it just kind of took off.
some people from your circle, if I'm not mistaken, would go on to be members of other Long Island bands and members of Pyrexia. Then, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Who are some of the people that you grew up with that fans of death metal might be familiar with?
Well, the impetus to bring everybody together, to be honest, nobody even knows him. We used to call him the Pope. It's this guy, Mike Florio. He played drums, and he was in my school, and we were out in this thing called the smoke shed. You were allowed to smoke cigarettes out in my school back then, even if you were 15.
Back when they gave a shit about people.
Yeah, back when they cared about you. You could smoke cigarettes as long as you did it in this smoke shed area. So we were out there, and he's like, yeah, I heard you play guitar. You want to jam? So we start jamming, and we start doing like hardcore songs and death metal songs, and we like the same stuff. Not really death metal songs, I should say. It was hardcore songs and Slayer songs. And I had some original material, so we started writing some material together. Mm-hmm. And he goes, I know this other person who's like, he writes music. He's great. This guy's forget about it. And he goes, you got to meet him. We got to jam. And it wound up being Terrence Hobbs. And
great pick.
Yeah, they were jamming and they had songs written. And the thing is, that's really crazy is a year before I met Mike, I had gone into this place called East of Eden with some other friends that I was with, Doug Bone. And because he had a car. Again, I'm like 15. And we go into this place, and this band is playing a Slayer song. And there's this dude playing the Kerry King solo. This black dude with glasses and his hat backwards playing the Kerry King solo exact, perfect, to a T. I had no idea who he was or who they were. I'm like, wow, this band is great. But I was there to see this other band, 666, these friends of ours. So I hadn't even seen him for that whole time. And then this guy, Mike Florio, hooked us up. And we started jamming and writing songs together, and we wound up calling ourselves Mortuary and just writing all kinds of stuff. So that's how that started, early high school days. And, just started jamming.
And then you said Doug Bone. That's Doug who would later play in Suffocation on Pierced From Within.
Yes.
And would later play in Pyrexia, amongst other things, too.
Yes, true. Yeah. Yep.
And at what point does Guy come in?
Guy, he comes in much later. After I stopped jamming with Hobbs and Smith and those guys. Mm-hmm. We used to go to Smith Haven Mall and go to Timeout where the video games were, and everybody would hang out, and musicians would be up there. And Guy and this guy Todd were handing out these business cards that said Suffocation, Death Metal. And
that's so rad. That's so fucking rad. That's way cooler than like that Twitter game.
Yeah, that was the original Twitter.
Yeah,
personal Twitter in person, man.
And I think that's how he hooked up with Josh Barron and Frank Mullen. Mm-hmm. And that's how he came into the picture. And they were jamming with this kid, Brian Kootner. But the problem was back then, nobody, including the Pope, who we originally jammed with, and even including Doug Bone back then, could play death metal except for Mike Smith. He was the only person on Long Island that could play death metal. So what had happened was Mike Smith used to go to Longwood High School, and we were jamming with him after the Pope couldn't play the music we were writing, and neither could Doug Bone. So Terrence met up with Mike Smith. We started jamming with him, and we called ourselves Psychotic at first. And Mike Smith was going to Longwood High School at the time, and they had a battle of bands, but you had to have, I think, 2 or 3 members had to be going to the school in order to play it. Okay. So me and Hobbs went in under aliases of kids that went to the school because we didn't go to that school, and we played the Longwood Battle of the Bands in Psychotic. That was like the first show I ever played in my life, and it was Hobbs on guitar. I was on guitar actually. This dude Jay Fligman was on bass, and Smith was on drums, and we played songs that later on would be on Suffo albums and Pyrexia albums. But again, we were in high school. Smith was 17. I was probably about 17 years old when we played that show, and we jammed for a couple years, and wound up splitting up, and that's when Guy came into the picture with those Suffocation business cards.
That's so fucking cool.
So at what point does Pyrexia become a band? I know there's the 1991 demo, right?
Well, what happened was Guy, again, his chops, Hobbs was right. You better be able to play if you're going to play with Hobbs and Hobbs, all right? And that's what happened at first, because Cerrito had stepped out. Me and him were trying to find a drummer, couldn't find a drummer. You had to go to Smith. Smith was the only drummer that's going to play the shit we were writing. So Hobbs and Guy were playing with Smith, and Guy just at the time couldn't keep up. Obviously later he can, But at the time, we're going back teenage years, he couldn't keep up.
Yeah.
So Cerrito stepped back into the picture. So Guy still, of course, wanted to play. So he started, with Pyrexia. He wrote a couple of his songs on the demo, and he tried to start and get members together and met up with Daryl, and they made a little 4-track, 2-song thing in their house, and then he would just pass it around at shows and try to find people that way. So
it is interesting though, like you said before, like Guy wasn't keeping up with the playing, but there is that like learning curve that I noticed in my own playing at like the age of 19, 20 and shit.
Right.
Where that's like where you actually figure out how to play.
Yeah, but also Hobbs is a prodigy. I mean,
Hobbs is a prodigy. No,
it was like playing with Jesus or something.
No,
you know what I'm saying?
I'm just.
You ever see that the Crossroads with the devil went down to Texas or whatever they
the death
do?
metal version.
Yeah, man. You play with Hobbs, you can play with the devil.
Oh yeah, he is, and there's always going to be someone better than you out there. But
Yeah.
I guess like normalizing what you're saying about Guy, like when he wasn't keeping up, it's just like, of course he's young.
Right.
We're talking about teenagers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
this is
Right, we wasn't growing up
dude
yet.
can like I've seen Suffocation a whole bunch of times.
No, he could play.
Dude
Now
fucking
it's a different world, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like this is
Teenage.
It's interesting how
it's funny.
how people when they take their instrument more seriously, they
Right.
skyrocket
Yeah.
and become.
Yeah, you got to get
real
over
good.
that hump.
What's really interesting, somebody pointed out to me, a lot of these albums we as like 90s brutal death metal fans worship, I'm like 36 right now, man. We worship these albums that were recorded by guys who were like 19, 20, 21 in a lot of cases.
Younger, 18, 19.
You know what I mean? A lot of these classic hallmark albums of death metal came out when people were in their early 20s and they were really unrestrained.
Teens,
and,
yeah.
Not, just doing it for the love of it, But,
No, we used to, getting signed was never even a thought about. It was just a tape recorder in the back of the room and then go do things in the backyard and listen to it.
It's amazing. I think it's so opposite now.
Way opposite. The whole
bands are
goal
just
now,
looking- the
got to
goal
get
is-
signed. Got to
Exactly.
get it. Yeah.
Right? Like, it's gotta be produced X way, and it's gotta be
the
like
first recording a lot of bands do sounds pristine, there's no demo level, Mm-hmm. So does that about bring us up to like the 1991 Pyrexia demo? Like you joined the band, and or were you on that demo, or was that the
9-Day one? Yeah, definitely. I was on that demo.
I noticed looking it up, Wallace Milton drew the cover. Isn't that
Yeah.
the original singer of IB?
He is.
All right, original singer of Internal Bleeding, Wallace Milton.
Wallace was good. We used to have some funny, hysterical, great times with Wallace. The guy introduced me to him in the earliest of days. He used to just come and hang out. We had a couch down there. We used to, you got to understand, again, teenagers, so we're living with our parents, all of us. Going to the studio, you got away from everybody. That was like home,
Yeah.
You lived there. That was like, that was really getting away from things.
all your free time.
Yeah, that was it. We stayed there. So that was like our place. So that was the hangout. And Wallace would come down there and hang out. And amazing artist. So he used to draw some pictures and he drew the logo. And he drew our first demo cover as well. He drew the entire, all the artwork on the demo cover. He drew first too. And yeah.
Is he one of those guys that just kind of dropped out of death metal and started doing something else with his life at one
I
point?
don't know where he is, man. He, things get crooked, so I don't
No,
know.
a lot of people come and go through the scene through the years. It
lost
happens,
touch.
man. Another thing I picked up looking up stuff about Pyrexia to bother you with tonight. Frank Rini, Uncle Frank, interviewed you 5 years ago, and he had a little anecdote. He said that you almost fought him because his brother was heckling you guys at some old show way back in the day.
That might have happened.
You remember that?
I do.
Yeah.
How do you forget Uncle Frank?
Well, Frank wrote about it when he was interviewing you. I think he's over it, man. He seemed pretty jovial,
of
when
course.
we saw him. So
Nah, back then.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
crazy. Youth going wild,
So, no comment?
No, it was just it was a
I mean,
funny
the
time.
statute of limitations probably out on that.
Yeah,
so.
no, I can't even remember what it was, but I remember we
Yeah.
were going back and forth about something. And it was,
What was do you remember?
exchange
Do
was-
you remember what club it might have been at, man?
definitely at the Roxy.
Yeah, I was going to ask you
Yeah.
about Sundance and about the Roxy in that era. A lot of my friends who are a little bit older than me talk about it. I was just too young to get into the Roxy during all those shows, and then when I got into older death metal, I got into death metal. It closed down, but it's right here in Huntington, where I grew up, man. Is there any recollection from that era, man? What was it like?
Great. It was great, man. I mean, Sundance was better. Sundance was a magical time, definitely. But the Roxy was definitely a great place too. Like it was a step up club wise, but it was like it was definitely when times were changing. Like there was more clubs where like I don't want to call them discos, but like just clubs, like, with Guidos and stuff would go to and stuff.
Right, like no stage, just a little DJ booth.
Yeah, DJ booths, nightclubs, whatever you want to call. I don't even know what to call.
The biggest fucking dance floor that you can get fucked up on.
Yeah, that stuff. Then that kind of swept in, and the Roxy was good and some great shows there. Life of Agony, I remember, in particular, which is an amazing show there. But played a lot of shows there. Good times. Yeah, definitely great. Wish it was still around.
What about was the scene here on Long Island comparable to the scene out in New York City? Would a lot of bands hit New York City and Long Island on their tour and things like that?
You get everybody at the Roxy. He got all the nationals that came through.
Because nowadays it seems harder and harder to get the nationals. It's coming back a little bit with clubs like Revolution and Amityville Music Hall, but you don't really see a lot of the nationals coming out this way so much.
I could romanticize the guy, Frank Cariola, because it was a youth thing, but I'm thinking in my mind, he used to book us shows as I was a child, and he just always reminded me of like the old Italian. He had the connections and stuff.
Yeah.
I just think like I said, in my mind, Cariola. I love the guy. I wish he was still doing stuff.
Yeah.
So all the bands used to come through his clubs.
Cool, man. What about rehearsal and recording studios on Long Island? Are any of those places still around? Like what areas were you frequenting to do that?
That was tough. That's how we wanted to record at Sabella, which was like a rap studio, just because he was the only place that had a good equipment,
Is that for Sermon and Mockery?
Yeah.
You recorded at Sabella?
Yeah.
Now, you did...
I love the way that album sounds, by the way.
I appreciate that.
I was going to ask you, you recorded Sermon and Mockery. Was that... You said it's more of like a hip-hop studio or something at the time?
Public Enemy did Fear of a Black Planet there.
Huh.
And LL Cool J did his first record there when he was like 16 or 17. And there's a bunch of other things that came out of that have nothing to do with that. We were definitely the first and close to probably the last death metal band to ever come out of there.
Did you know someone at the studio
We
or
would
something?
just literally, back in the days, if you remember Good Times and stuff, there was ads. We were just checking out every studio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good Times, the free newspaper that they have at all the record stores and studios.
And we jammed on Willis Avenue, and that was on, it still is on Willis Avenue. And he just had a ridiculous, recording studio.
It sounds it. From 93, it doesn't sound like a 93 recording in a lot of ways.
Right.
Like,
No,
it sounds a little like it's a timeless recording. You know what I mean?
No, I hear you. I appreciate
it's hard
that.
to date. It's awesome.
No, I appreciate that. It was, it sounded weird back then. That's another thing. It's weird how time, ages things. It's all, you got to let history judge rather than judging at the moment.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think that one really stands up.
Yeah. No, I can't disagree.
So Sermon and Mockery comes out in 1993 on Drowned Productions.
Yes.
That from the Spanish record label from Spain.
Hard vinyl.
Which would, that's Dave Rodden, who would later from Avulsed, he did Repulse Records, but that was Drowned Productions before he got into that, right?
Correct, yeah.
And I'm sorry, not to cut you off, you said vinyl?
Hard vinyl. That was like the parent company or something.
Oh, okay, all right. And what was the reaction when it came out, like in the death metal scene? Were people...
Terrible.
Oh, wow, okay. Because nowadays, obviously, we know the legacy.
See, people don't understand, and that's why as a young person, that's why I made a lot of, you really got to stand out. People don't understand it from a listener's perspective. But when Sermon came out, and again, this really, as a young person, took this to heart, because I jammed for years with Hobbs and years with Cerrito and years with Smith. All they said was it was a Suffocation clone and it was garbage. And, just because there was nothing else to compare it to. It came from the same town, same city. And that was the perception. If you could come and bring every magazine back from back then, Suffocation clone was what we were. Now that it's ridiculous to hear that now with so many clones that use literal Suffo rhythms and, steal it blatantly. And
now that's the thing to do. That's the shit.
That's the thing to do.
Yeah.
Back then, there was nothing. You had Deicide, Morbid Angel, Suffo. We come in, they're like, these guys are clones, and that was that.
I know Broken Hope also got a lot of flack for being quote unquote Cannibal Corpse clones.
What I'm saying? There was nothing to
when
compare
they came
it to.
out. Yeah, it's there's sometimes when the pool is that small, anybody with a certain type of riff
and talk about purists
vocal style.
Back then, it was like people were super pure about how shit had to be, and
which definitely hurts the artist.
Well,
just through word of mouth.
It pushes them though. It pushed me to do different things, but. I think so, man. It hurts the feelings. I tell you that much.
Yeah. Oh, but, I'm sure. And also, comparing is just the cheap way of analyzing music, really.
Well, it's kind of natural. I get it. You know what I'm saying? It is cheap.
It is natural, but it's not really considering the music.
No, you're right. You're right.
It's considering what the music could be.
You hope people approach it like that, and there are enough people that do. and that's still the people I'm going to try to connect with, the people that are trying to feel the music. And
I did that when I was younger. Like, I know growing up
yes,
that I did that. Like, I would compare things a lot, and now I try not to. And, like, yeah, not that I don't compare, but it's not my first go-to.
You evolved as a listener and as a musician.
I urge anyone who's listening to this, that's what you do.
I agree. I know, but as a young person, like...
me too. Bite your tongue and just learn.
Yeah,
listen,
when I was listening to
listen,
the earliest days when Slayer was the heaviest thing out there, if you listen to Metallica, I thought you were a poser. I was like, go. You know what I'm saying? I thought it was... And I was like that. If it sounded anything like Megadeth, I couldn't get into them till like 10 years ago. Like, I wasn't allowing myself. I was like, no, I can't. But
there's a lot of bands like that. I'm from the 90s, and there's a lot of stuff that I didn't allow myself to really get into because I was already so much into brutal death metal and underground, tape trading and things like that. When my friends were trying to play me Slipknot,
right?
I'd just be like, what? You know what I mean?
Korn,
like,
I was way beyond Korn. People going,
if it wasn't on a photocopied tape, I wasn't, trying to hear it back then. But now I can listen to a lot of different things and appreciate what was going on. And I think that's what's great too about Sermon of Mockery is and other things is that now in hindsight, the death metal scene realizes it was a regional movement. It's Pyrexia, it's Internal Bleeding, it's Suffocation. There's a lot of other bands that are kind of like not as big as that were around back then. And you even got Dehumanized out in Queens. It's kind of recognized as this regional scene where everyone plays a part and contributes something. And there's always kind of something to unlock and learn about.
No, and now we get it. But back then, like you said, what was the reaction then? And that's what it was. Yeah.
Now, something else I wanted to ask you about. We talked about the reaction from the metal scene and everything. What was the reaction from your family members when Sermon of Mockery came out? This is your first album that you've released, and you've worked at being a musician for these years.
No. I come from an old, I guess, Italian family. They had no understanding. They have no artistic grasp of anything like that. They thought it was a complete waste of my life. And then again, from the Catholic Italian, you show the cover of Sermon. My father literally wouldn't look at it. He's like, no, that's garbage. Get that away from me. And to this day, they've never seen a Pyrexia show, and they definitely hate it. They still, even like I said, we go all these years later, they have no interest in it. And Sermon of Mockery to them was like, they thought it was like foolish.
Now, I thought that was really interesting when you said that your father had taped you the Kiss Destroyer side A, because he must have seen what they look like and what.
I think that's why he only gave me side A, because he saw how much I liked that. I told you I didn't get side B.
Okay. So your whole life you've been trying to make Pyrexia side B.
Maybe. Yeah. There you go.
Wow.
Well,
So
that's very poetic.
There you go.
So would you say that is kind of angst that might have created has driven you in a way?
I really don't want to say it's driven me, but because I've done many other things in life that should have proven to them that you can do death metal and you're still not going to throw your life away, that it is a real art form. And, when my friends got inducted to Long Island Hall of Fame of Music, guys that I used to write with, guys that she would say, I shouldn't be hanging around with, when, nothing impacts their view on things. And as you get older, you just see that they're small and, they have no accomplishments on their own, actually, when I look at them in perspective of any type of significance or anything that would have any meaning or value other than to their own, small bubble of people. So in essence, they miss out on a lot. It's a small thinking. I don't know if it's the me generation from the 60s, where it's me, because sometimes I look at them as their my young children rather than my parents. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I got to explain things to them. I got kids myself, so I don't see how they don't look at things. My kid, she makes slime and she wants to make, making the best slime her living. I probably get behind it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We'll figure out a way to make money with slime,
Yeah. You
But,
don't want to box her in.
You don't want to box her in,
Yeah.
No,
maybe it's a generation thing. I don't know. But yet again, all my friends don't have that issue.
I never had that strong a reaction from my parents, but I come from a very old school blue collar Catholic family.
Right.
And my dad's, to this day, the only question my dad has about the music is, did you make any money?
Oh, that was the main thing. And that's stuff that I'll tell you, they affected the art of the music because, sometimes I would think I I'll tell you a big bad thing that happened once, and this is directly affected to my parents putting money on things. When we put out Hatred, Anger, and Disgust, before we put out System of the Animal, I was lucky enough to be talking to Century Media, and they were going to put out our record. And it was the same time Gorguts was getting, not Gorguts, Cryptopsy was getting signed by them, and they weren't signed yet. And Suffocation had gotten $25,000 to record their record. So that's like the number in my mind. Like, oh, to be successful, you got to get this. Your parents, you got to show them that you can make some real money with this. And Century Media offered us like $7,000 to do it. And I was like, no, we need more money. And that was like the stupidest fucking thing I ever did in my life. You know what I'm saying? Because if I would have gotten signed to Century Media in 1995, everything probably would have been different in my life right now.
Yeah.
You know, death metal wise.
But you were trying to
show
you
my
were looking
parent,
at, you were looking at it from their perspective.
I was looking at it from their perspective, man, not from mine. I remember I was at my job in a back room talking to goddamn it, I can't remember his goddamn name now. He was the guy at Century Media. You know him. Is it Marco? Is it Marco Barbieri?
That name sounds
brain
familiar.
is fused out, man.
Name
I know
sounds
it's him.
familiar.
I know
I
it's him.
think that is,
you know? And I mean, that's like the guy you want to talk to. And there's a stupid punk kid. Here I am getting the lucky enough to talk to him. Yeah. And I'm like, nah, we need more. And what are you fucking kidding me? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that was thinking about the parents. You know, I got to show them I can make, you know, real career out of this. Career should have I know now should have nothing to do with this. So
this is the way I look at it. Is it's kind of a side passion that you do.
It's not even a side passion. You know how I speak now. This is your passion, and this is what you do.
Well, I still got a day job, bro.
You got a day job, but I have one too. And,
I know.
But I'm going to try to convince you. I used to. I worked at Carnegie Hall for almost 20 years.
Really?
Yes.
That's pretty rad, actually.
That's pretty crazy, brother. I met a lot of people there, and I met a lot of artists there.
Right.
And I met a lot of people that dedicate their lives to playing the flute and make nothing, or like some Simba drum from some other country. Most of the shows at Carnegie Hall on the main stage, I'll tell you who they are, and you'll have no idea who they are.
Yeah,
but they pack their place out. And again, it made me realize our death metal is just like a niche of this German fucking drum troupe that's coming in that I have no idea.
Do those people make money though?
Like, I don't believe they do.
I don't think they do.
I don't believe
either.
they do. That's
like,
my point.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my point.
I really appreciate that you brought that up.
Right.
Like, you know,
that's what was keying me off. I'm like, here are these people doing what I do, but just because they wear a tuxedo, but the tuxedo's rented, because I see in their not green room, but they used to have orchestra rooms with all their luggage. You don't want to be living like these people. It's like rough living. You're living out of a box, you know,
making maybe 35 a year
tops,
and you're traveling.
Well, I'll give you another. They're making like that or less. I'll give you the top end. The guy Rush Limbaugh did a show on this, and used to be on the cover of the Daily News constantly. The union stagehands make at Carnegie Hall and then God bless them, they make like $300,000 or $400,000 a year. They make a ridiculous amount of money. Yeah. The top violinist that ever plays at like the Philharmonic makes like $90,000. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, here's the guy that's turning on the lights for the people that are going to see the artist that's going to play. He makes $400,000. The actual
behind the scene magic. Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So even those people aren't in it for the money.
Union strong.
Union strong. God bless. That's what I'm saying. I did it for 17 years. Yeah. I didn't make that kind of money, but God bless. I don't take it away from anybody. I'm just trying to say, the artist doesn't make the money. Even at the Carnegie Hall, where you say like that's the best stage, to me it is. It's like the keynote stage in the world.
Yeah.
They don't make the money. Nobody makes money in art, and then that's not why anybody's in it. Nobody's writing musical art that really writes it.
It's a really interesting way of contextualizing death metal artists.
Yeah.
Because it is the same thing.
It is exactly the same.
And it might be a little more rowdy on the edges.
Yep, and to the untrained person, it looks so articulate and fancy when you put on it, like I said, the tuxedo. But again, I see behind the scenes that tuxedo comes off. They smell. The room stinks. Yeah. Your socks are next to I see the pizza boxes stacked up just like when I go play a show. I'm serious, and it's nothing different. And they're not there for the money. And I see them hanging out, and again, they get to see the world. They're in New York City from Germany. This is great. They love it. They played Carnegie Hall. that's it. These are accomplishments to them. This is giant for them.
Yeah.
Money is
amazing,
not
man.
even thought about,
Yeah, I mean,
You
just-
start looking at it like that, come on, man. Traveling
you
around.
can understand it
Yes.
a little bit. Like, not everyone's a fucking celebrity
No.
status making that money,
Or
like,
cares to
like
be.
YouTube stars.
Or
and shit
cares
like
to be.
that. Yeah,
They're
yeah.
just there for the experience.
That's not what everybody wants out of it. Yeah.
No.
Hmm.
No.
Yeah.
And if they want it too, like, there's no problem with wanting that, But at the same time, what's more important? You're still gonna weigh your options.
And why would you play death metal if that's what you want?
Well, there you go.
Well, you can want more than one thing. We're not.
Yeah.
You can want
we're not-
more
we're
than
not
one thing.
binary,
But whatever your
but-
passion is, you shouldn't fucking diffuse it because you think you have expectations of making a certain amount of money or, certain...
Or how you're going to make the money.
How you gonna make the money.
Because you're talking about a record deal for $7,000, but who knows how you could have flipped
Exactly.
it with the platform that they gave you. But the thing is, you're thinking through your parents' understanding
Small.
who never
You're thinking small.
never took the time to think about a record label and how that business model operates.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like you got to... I end up in a position where I'm trying to explain to my father what we do with merchandise when we go on the road and we sell merchandise and how the band works. And, you get to a certain point where you're like, that's not his bag. That's not what he learned how to do. That's not how he supported his family all these years. You know what I mean? And it's like, I just got to do it and let him know that I'm not.
Is.
Yeah, I like that. Don't worry, I'm not going into debt. I'm not coming back home in a body bag. You
And
know what I
nobody
mean?
gets out alive, though. That's the key right there. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter how much you're going to make. I'm telling you, you're not going to be destitute in America. You could work 2 jobs, 2 McDonald's jobs, and you're going to make enough money to support yourself in an apartment.
You can do it. I
You
mean,
can do it.
It's
And that's
hard.
if you work. That's hard, but you're
It's
not.
hard,
You're not
but,
going to die.
So if you have the passion, you can do it.
You should go for it.
You're right. And I don't know. It is interesting though. I'm glad you brought up that comparison of Carnegie Hall.
Yeah, man.
I had no idea you worked there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I would have an idea, but at the same time, pretty interesting comparison. I
It
never
is.
really even thought of it like that, but it makes so much sense.
Because
compared-
nobody's heard of us, and I can tell you, I'll show you the schedule from them. You never heard of any of these people playing at Carnegie Hall, for the most part.
packed out.
Packed out.
Where's all that fucking money?
Or
going?
autographs, people standing for autographs, people scalping tickets out front, straight up crowds.
Fucking wild.
Yeah,
man.
3,000 seat arena, and it's like it ain't cheap tickets either.
No, it's the most.
Right.
It's one of the most sought after venues to play in the world.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
hands fucking down.
Yeah, that's it.
It's phenomenal. All right. Well,
So-
let's move on.
All right. Well, yeah. So you mentioned Hatred, Anger, Disgust. That was an EP, right? Not an album.
Yes, 3 songs.
Yeah. And at that point, you bring in singer Keith DeVito.
Yes.
Brand new style of vocals completely.
Yep.
And are you at that point the only member from Sermon still in the band?
No, not at all. No, it's me, Guy, and me and Guy.
Okay, so it's you and Guy.
Yes.
New drummer,
New drummer,
new singer,
new guitar player too.
new guitar player. Okay, and then about 2 years go by, you turn down the Century deal, and then you do System of the Animal.
Yeah.
And what label does that come out on?
Serious Entertainment from
Serious
Denmark.
in 1997, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and at that point, Guy left. He wasn't on System, or
No, he was not on System.
okay. So what does Guy do? Did he join Suffocation? Or where
He
did he go?
no, he actually had he Guy, I love him. He's my brother. We're gonna try to work on something, now even. But I think at the time, because again, you're going back when you're going through stages in life, and nobody's making money. Some of your friends are, you're not. You don't know what you should do, and he just took a hiatus from death metal for a minute.
And I also remember seeing him around Internal Bleeding.
Right
back in the
around then,
90s too.
after that point,
Yeah.
that's when he jumped in back with Internal Bleeding.
So the band takes on decidedly more hardcore influence.
Yep.
I would even say it's like that. A lot of people would say that that's kind of like one of the albums that laid the foundation for deathcore, whatever you would call that nowadays. But back then, there weren't a lot of bands really blending that element of that gritty New York
Not at all.
hardcore in with death metal. But you want to talk about that? I mean, like
Yeah.
if the reaction to Sermon wasn't great in the metal scene,
Well,
the
here's
the
it.
reaction to System of the Animal in the metal scene must have been beautiful.
That's
right?
that's why you really can't worry about people.
Uh-huh.
But that was a different change because I wanted to do something different. When you come from the same town as Suffocation, you can't do. You really shouldn't be doing anything too similar, especially in the early days. If you want to make your mark, you want to try to do something. So we said, let's go with a less guttural guy. Let's go with some different type of slams. Because again, a lot of the bands today using that same format for that slam, which again, it's the Suffo slam, If you
Dun
ask,
dun da da dun
yes,
dun dun.
yes.
Yeah.
And I play with a lot of bands, and I keep hearing it. And to me, it's not authentic. It's not genuine to use that. So I'm always trying to do original. It's sometimes it's my downfall, is I'm striving to be original, and that when Suffo plays so many beautiful things, that boxes out a lot of things to play because they've done it, and in my mind, they've done it. It's for them. It's they own it. So yeah, we took a more of a hardcore approach. Which, if you saw Hobbs today, the earliest songs I used to play with him, I had a lot of hardcore-ish songs. That's definitely been one of my passions. I like hardcore. I love death metal. Even on my newest material that no one's heard yet, there's a blend. I just love the energy of hardcore. It's definitely, death metal is more head down playing. In between songs, you really don't say much. Hardcore is like, crowd involvement.
Absolutely.
A lot of involvement between the singer and the crowd, between the members of the band on stage. And I like incorporating that.
I noticed that nowadays you still even full disclosure. I filled in on vocals for Pyrexia for 2 weeks a few months ago on tour, and I was taught all the different crowd manipulation tactics. You got the wall of death and the circle
You gotta
pits.
put on a
and,
show, man.
Giving out
cats.
CDs to the people that are going nuts in the pit. And one thing getting into it, I was a little hesitant because that's not how I always mixed it up with my bands, with my stage banter and everything. But once I saw the first night of tour, once I saw how people reacted to it, I got really into it, man. It was great, and it was a lot of fun, man. It
connect.
And it's funny because I didn't know if it would always go over well. You could play shows where there's not that many people there. Like some of those off nights where
worried.
Yeah, man, and there'd be like 10 or 15 people there, and they'll do it, man. They just want to have a good time.
That's the best time, actually, I found, when you do it. When there's only 10 or 15 people and you do something like that, and you bring them all on stage, and you're talking to them, and you're hanging with them, and you're headbanging with them and everything. The next day, that's where social media does pay off. You're getting all these things. That was the greatest thing I ever did. Made me feel like a kid again. If it's an old person or if it's a kid, that's the sickest. That's the first death metal show I ever said I'm hooked, or you got a new fan, or
right. Yeah.
It's.
Live performance is killer. I mean, I was at that Kingsland show that you guys did.
I appreciate it. Yeah,
awesome.
no. We try. We enjoy the hell out of it. So that's where that definitely came in, and it was definitely a conscious thing.
When you say that you get a lot of, you try to bring the joy into it, I'll second that as someone who watched you. I remember seeing you up on stage. You're having a lot of fun on stage, which is really important.
Yeah, no, I genuinely love this. Like I said, I'm mad at myself that I haven't, like I said, that it took me this long to realize if you love something that much, you should, not worry about any kind of money or anything like that. If you got friends that want to do it with you and you're blessed like that, that's a crazy blessing, man. What are you running away from that for? That's run towards that. That's all I'm saying.
That also reaches a lot of young kids, because I know, I don't remember the first few death metal shows I went to, but I remember the bands that had the most fun for some reason.
Sure.
When you can see it in someone's face that they're having a good time on stage, that's fucking huge.
And I got not that long ago, but I got a long time ago, not long enough ago, but you are super there to entertain. You're not there to just play your songs and say that should be enough. You are there, especially nowadays with so many outlets of entertainment. You have to entertain people. People are like, what are you going to do for me?
Yes.
We joke around like we're going to have to be juggling and swallowing fire and stuff, but you got to put on it. Kiss got it in the 70s. That's why Kiss is still in my brain.
Yeah, and not
you
everyone
gotta
is
put on a show,
doing
man.
theatrical shit. You can't not every band is fucking Behemoth or some shit where you can have pyrotechnics and
great.
stand there in robes. Yeah, it's fun shit. But
you ain't get the money, you ain't got the crew.
If you could do it, and you
we're barely hobbling in.
Yeah, exactly. You sell a show by just standing there. Cool, go for it. But come on, have some fun.
Well,
and it pays off.
Speaking about putting on a good performance and getting the crowd up, in the 90s when you did this transition, were you guys playing a lot of these hardcore shows? Because there was a big turn in the mid to late 90s on Long Island where things went hardcore. Sure. And the Roxy had closed down, and it was a lot more about hardcore shows at VFW halls and places like the PWAC and things like that.
No, I would say that was more of a younger crowd doing that at the time, and we didn't have much involvement with it. I'll be honest with you. There was, there might have been some hardcore shows with some of the bigger bands, but that whole scene, the only band I think we may have played with might have been Tension in the earlier days. But
I could see that getting pretty rowdy.
You know, Tension is great. We're gonna reach out to them. They're great. But I think they're playing with the Cro-Mags coming up.
Wow.
Yeah,
it's a good pairing.
You're not kidding.
Yeah.
So, no, I think those were pretty much separate. We were playing just regular metal shows, nationals coming through, opening up for them and stuff.
So at what point? I know you lived down in Texas, or you at least stayed down in Texas.
No, I didn't live there. My heart is in Texas.
Okay. Well, I bring it up because when we were on that tour together, I noticed that there was a lot of really long running connections you had with people down in Texas.
That was the first. Yep, Sally.
There was the young lady who put us up for the night. She put the whole band up, and you know, the food for us and everything,
Erin,
man.
Yep, Erin.
Yeah, man. There was a lot of people that just were really showing Southern hospitality that were saying, I remember Pyrexia from know 93, 94, whatever.
That was the first time we ever went out of state, and that's when, like you said, underground. We met that band Crucifix that Selly was in. Mm-hmm. He was a singer, and through correspondence, and I mean letters writing letters back and forth.
Yes.
And then finally, I know you love that, and finally exchanging phone numbers. They were like, yo, we'll set up like a week tour down here, and you guys and us will come down here and with this other band, Torment Defined, and we'll go up and down. We went down to Corpus Christi, which is like a big deal for them. Like, there was fish, because, you know, they're in the middle of Texas. They didn't see water.
I was in Corpus Christi with one of my bands once.
It was great. These memories we had.
It's kind of a crackdown now. It's kind of
no, it's harsh. You know, it's a harsh, you know, and we love I love my Texans. You know, easy now. They're out there.
Hey, no, I'm not insulting them. The crowd was wild.
They are the best.
It was great. No, we had a great time down there.
That's what I mean. They're a great crowd, man.
It was like when you left.
A loving crowd.
Like, outside, there was a lot of homeless folks.
You know, it's a tough, it's tough.
It's rough.
Life's tough. Life's tough. But
it's very different from here, you know.
Actually, it was great. It was great. That was a great trip. And like I said, made lifelong friends that since then I'll go there. We just toured through there, and I meet up with them every time. And it's just how it is. I stay at their houses. I mean, that's
fucking awesome, man.
All right, so correct me if I'm wrong, but 1999, you and Keith DeVito and, if I'm saying it right, Rob Maresca from Pyrexia join up with Brian Hobby, who was a bassist of Internal Bleeding, and Trevor from Obituary, and formed Catastrophic.
That's correct, yeah.
So what was the, how did that all come about? It was kind of, seems like Pyrexia got sucked into
we got blessed.
Another band. And,
we got blessed to work with royalty is what we did. But what happened was, death metal, I guess, is a small enough community, and back then especially, there wasn't as much talent out there. Mm-hmm. John Tardy couldn't do a tour for Obituary, and Keith DeVito actually filled in. Because earlier, he had filled in for Suffocation when Frank didn't do a tour. So he went to Europe with Deicide and filled in for Frank for a full tour. And I think Obituary found out about it, or somehow they saw him or whatever, but he filled in for Tardy for an entire Obituary tour.
That's pretty rad.
It is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
And him and Trevor became good friends. And then they decided they wanted to start a side band. And I got blessed to be, he's like, I know musicians. And just got lucky.
So Catastrophic signs with Metal Blade Records.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Trevor.
I don't know what that's like.
Me neither, really. Trevor did it. You know, it was because of him, man.
So it was kind of Obituary's kind of riding high at that point. What were they on, like World Demise?
I can't tell you the exact album, but they actually, I think, were like a bit of a hiatus, which is why Trevor was itching to do something. And the dude's got a lot of creativity.
So he was able to just pitch a new project to Metal Blade Records, and they bit
without even hearing anything.
And you guys put out The Cleansing in 2001.
Yep.
All right. Well, how did that? How was that received?
I guess it was received well, but again, people are gonna compare it to Obituary and Pyrexia, and it probably wasn't Obituary. It wasn't as good as Obituary, and it wasn't probably as heavy or fast as Pyrexia. So it was like, but there's definitely some sick Trevor songs on there that I can't deny. It's his sound and his songs, but people, purists out there, they want to see Trevor in Obituary. That's definitely where he belongs.
It's interesting because in this day and age there seems to be a lot more super groups and combination groups.
Yeah, but we're not super though. It was like Trevor, it was awesome. Trevor.
I'm just saying
it kind of is though.
I mean, in this day and age, if you put out a band and it said members of Obituary and Pyrexia, it seems like nowadays it's a lot more common, and maybe back then people weren't ready to have these super groups. So it seems a lot more prevalent
we weren't
nowadays.
A super group.
You know what I mean?
It was definitely us riding, lucky enough to be with Trevor, and like I said, I think they would just wanted to see him with Obituary because he's that, he's that big.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's probably what that is.
And I also read that Joe Sincata from Full Force was that while you were in the band?
No, that's when I went back and I did only the one album. I think I don't know how many of the guys did the
They
albums.
put out in 2008. They put out Pathology of Murder.
Right.
But I noticed that you obviously had already moved back on with Pyrexia, because then
Yes.
you put out in 2004 Cruelty Beyond Submission.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like a Pyrexia greatest hits.
What it was,
so to speak.
Yeah, it was 3 new songs at the time because no one had heard the first 3 tracks, and then the rest of the album was just old tracks. Yeah.
Okay.
And that was that like, at that point you were trying to like reestablish Pyrexia? I mean,
Yeah.
did you have a whole new lineup at that point?
Whole new lineup because the guys, like I said, stayed with Catastrophic. Basically, I think maybe 2 or 3 years were put into Catastrophic in whole, for the first year or 2, and then it took me a minute to get the full lineup again together. So then, yeah, the 2004 thing was just like, hey guys, here we are. We're still gonna try to do something.
So you guys are back to now. You're playing shows around New York and stuff. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
2007, you signed with Unique Leader and do
Yes.
Age of the Wicked.
Yep, we got lucky with that too. Yep.
Okay, yeah. Rest in peace to Eric.
Yep.
Unique
Rest in
Leader,
peace,
yeah.
Derek. Absolutely.
Yeah. So Age of the Wicked. That's kind of like Pyrexia's like big step back into the
Yep.
into the scene because
First
there's a new
full
album
length,
out.
yep.
And how was that received? What did you guys did a fair amount of touring?
Yeah,
for
no,
that?
that was pretty good. It was people were happy with the material. It's fairly decent production. We did tour in 2007 with Crematorium and a couple other bands, and did America. We did a couple shows a couple festivals over in Europe, and it was good. I have to say that was a good time.
All right. So is it fair to say that you took like a little break, or was it a really busy 6 years for Pyrexia? Because the next album is 2013,
it was-
Feast of
It
Iniquity.
definitely wasn't a really busy 6 years. No.
All right. Well, I mean, everybody's got families. I'm not trying to knock you, but
How are your 6 years?
Yeah, no.
That's like,
No, we definitely took a dip. Again, it's hard. Most of the guys were in Jersey, and I was up north. The drummer was in Delaware.
Wow,
It was difficult to keep the train rolling.
you were still on Long Island at that
still
point?
on the island.
Yeah.
Never left the island since I moved here, and it was more of a difficult thing to keep things together.
And Feast of Iniquity, that's the first album with Doug Bone on it.
And yeah, Doug Bone and Dave Koros.
And how did that? First of all, Doug Bone, obviously, you kind of grew up with, or at
Yeah.
least you knew him from your teenage years.
Yeah,
How does Dave Colross of Malevolent Creation and so many other projects that he's been featured on come into the picture?
That's funny because he inadvertently moved around the corner from me, and was going to do a rock band.
On Long Island, he
On
moves.
Long
'cause-
Island.
Is he originally from Long Island?
No, he's originally from Buffalo.
Okay.
Well, not Buffalo, but upstate.
Yeah.
Then obviously he moved to Florida.
Yeah.
But then he moved back here to jam with Suffo.
Uh-huh.
And then he stayed here after he stopped jamming with Suffo.
And then that's when he comes together with Pyrexia.
Well, no. Here,
Okay.
check this out. He moved around the corner from me, and he was putting together a rock band. Pure rock. You never heard this, Will. I have it. I'll play it for you now. And
Is it blast beats?
No. We record.
How dare you.
He saw me in a Kohl's parking lot, and he reached out to me, and he's like, "Yo, I'm around the corner. Come do this rock band." I was like, again, Dave Kohlross. I was like, "Sure." I was like, "Let's do it." All right.
Wow, all right.
And we recorded this rock band. I don't know if it's 5 songs at Sincata's studio,
Yeah.
and it's got a clean singer on it. You never heard it. We did all kinds of photo shoots for it, and like I think we even shopped it to Monte Cana because
What was the band called?
Storm,
Storm.
because the singer's name was Matt Storm, and he really
Wow.
was a great singer.
When the singer's last name is the
Yeah.
name of the band, that's like,
Yeah, that's what we were going for.
right.
But the label said it was dated material. So we'll see I'll let you hear it. You could judge.
I mean, did
But-
you hear what was coming out around then, man? Maybe you needed a throwback.
Either way, it didn't work out. But then me and Dave became really close friends, and then I started building a little recording studio, and it made sense. I was like, "Yo, you want to play drums?" And he was like, "Sure," and that was that.
So Doug Bone was kind of like the touring drummer,
Well,
the main drummer.
no. I'll tell you what happened again. There's more because you live in a small town. All of a sudden, while we're sitting in my studio, hanging out, either before or after practice, he gets a call from Suffo. This is before Pinnacle of Bedlam. And they're like, "We need a drummer." And he's like, "Okay." So basically we needed to get somebody else to get in there because when Suffolk calls, you go.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So he went, and Bones was just hanging out, and I'd see him every day as always. And I was like, yo, I think I had already asked him to do a song on the album just because I love him.
Yeah.
And I always wanted to jam with him. And I was like, you might as well, can you finish half of the album? And he's like, sure. And then after that, we got offered to go to Europe and do a tour. And I was like, let's go. And he was like, yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
And he started doing stuff. And then we did an American tour with the Carnival of Death, with Suffocation and Cataclysm and Jungle Rock.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't that tour with Kevin and Charlie?
Yeah, that was Kevin and Charlie playing for Pyrexia, yeah.
So at that point, what are we in, like 2014, 15? Something like that?
15, I think, yeah.
Okay, and you got Kevin and Charlie. Those guys' last names escapes me right now.
Kevin Muller and Charlie, I don't know if you say Errigo or Errigo.
Okay, yeah, I've met those guys, and they're also in a band, the Merciless Concept, which has been a little inactive as of late, because those guys also, like you said, when Suffolk calls, you go.
Yeah.
Right? So those guys are with Suffocation now, but at that point, Kevin and Charlie are with you guys. Something I did want to touch upon briefly, it's been in the news, and it's been on some metal websites, clear up any misconception. Your singer from Age of the Wicked and Feast of Iniquity, Eric Shute, at that point a few years later, June 2016, he's arrested for 3 homicides.
Yes.
And so he was clearly out of the band for what, a good...
For a good minute, yeah, for a good while, because he had gone off the deep end before he had done that.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was not in the band at the time, thank God.
When you mean like going off the deep end, was he still like in the band, and you saw like signs of him kind of losing his shit?
Not the violence like that. That is that's a little extreme. I never expected that. I know you say death metal, but he didn't write any of the lyrics.
No, I mean everyone who's listening to this podcast gets the theatrics of death metal.
Yeah, this is
normal people just writing extreme music.
Right. Yeah, and very unfortunate that you would be touring already with a new singer, and this guy, when this hits the media, he's portrayed as the singer of your band.
Yeah, no,
but which he wasn't at that point.
No. Luckily, it got cleared up pretty quick.
Yeah,
and we don't talk about it much, but he had gone off the deep end. Before, like I said, like a year before this had happened, and we kicked him out of the band because he had all these radical ideas with the currency was going to crash and the world was going to end, and he was definitely one of those doomsday pharaohs.
Kind of Ron Paulish, I guess.
Very, very Ron Paul, very much Alex Jones, very, very, very extreme and weird. And
sad.
They just took it. They just took it to a horrible extreme. And the outcome was the worst, and I had to say he's probably where he deserves to be and should be. And
well, very, very unfortunate, but
very,
also unfortunate that the band was tagged with that at first. When people didn't realize the timeline didn't really line up with his involvement.
We moved again. It's so long ago now, and we've had several singers, including yourself, since then.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So
it's done. It's put to rest. They know it had nothing to do with us. That kid's crazy. He's
And in reality, in June 2016, you were most likely starting to get involved with the Tomorrow's Victim Boys. Am I not?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So who was it? Did those guys just start hanging around, and Beach and Danny joined at the same time? How did
I heard
maybe brief us on this new lineup of Pyrexia and how these guys came in the fold.
I heard Beach singing, and my man's voice is just I love it,
Mm-hmm.
So I asked him to do some guest vocals on the album, and he was nice enough to agree. So he comes down, he starts singing a couple of lines, and like from what I had already in place, I was like, well, this is like a man just sang, and I have a boy recorded the other track,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, do you mind singing a few more lines? And he's like, yeah, sure. And then I was like, do you mind doing the whole song? And he did the whole song, and then like he left, and I'm like, I gotta ask him to join the band. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it was kind of like that, I was like, yo, if you got the time, we'd love to have you. And yeah, he was gracious enough to do it. And then at the same time, I offered, because now, once he was family, he mentioned he wanted to record his band. Come on down. Like I said, I have the whole recording set up. They tracked their whole album. That's where I met Danny and their drummer and Albie. And now Danny's a full-time member in Pyrexia. He plays guitar, so I met him that way. I know I've met him in the past, but like I started, when they were recording, I saw him every night, and we We
You
just,
get close with people when
you
you're
do.
like
You do,
when
you
you're
know?
recording them and
Sure,
stuff, and
sure.
just producing them. If they're cool people,
you see the personality. You can see how they are.
and you kind of like it's a strange way. Friendship is almost not forced, but it's like it just pushed a lot quicker because when you're put in that environment,
You have
like,
to.
You've kind of just met the person,
Yep.
and you have to work together, and you have to work together really close.
Yeah. And when you work close and it works, oh, all right, that's nice. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that was like that. And I saw his chops, and he played. And the Pyrexia family has grown so big, it even reached out to Albie now. He actually helps us out in a lot of live situations and plays bass for us. So the family grew a lot with the Tomorrow's Victim guys.
So we're talking in terms of, I mean, if we were to sit here and do like a family tree of Pyrexia, it would probably take all night. But I mean, you could at least include Suffocation, Internal Bleeding, Merciless Concept, Artificial Brain now, because John and I have been involved. Tomorrow's Victim, Malevolent Creation. I mean, the list goes on and on, man. It's pretty crazy.
No, like if especially if you go with the Catastrophic and the Obituary.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and if you did the 6 steps of Kevin Bacon with Pyrexia and Death Metal, I think we'd be probably somehow connected with members to quite a few bands, and I don't think anybody realizes that either. We do a lot of, again, it's because of the work, and the blue collar in New York is tough. Sinatra always says it, but you got to work hard, and there's not a lot of time for playtime out here.
So you got to play hard. Well, you can.
But I'm saying it delays things sometimes in the past. So, people don't understand behind the scenes. We've been hustling and working and making moves with people, but it doesn't always come to fruition on the outside.
It's like you said, you got to take chances.
A lot of chances. You got to do it.
Yeah. So this new album, Unholy Requiem, that just came out on Unique Leader Records. What going in, like, what was the idea? Was there a concept for the album? Was there something? Because this is the first album now in 5 years?
5 years, I think.
Brand new lineup.
Yep, new lineup.
Where's your mindset at when you guys are
the mindset? I gotta
preparing
say,
for this?
which could be wrong, could have been right. It depends on how it hits you. But I always got to go away from the trends. It just goes back to '97 when everybody just started copying the slam thing and copying the riffs. I try to do a little different things. That happened now. I wanted to write a real death metal album. I'm really getting tired as an older listener and participant in death metal with the genre splicings and slam or grind or this or that. So I really, maybe I overthink things too much, but I really love the music. I'm really passionate about it, and I try to put a lot of thought into it. So I just try to do like a real death metal riff oriented album. If you're gonna write a slam on this album, I'm not saying forever, but for this album going in, if it's going to be a slam, it's going to be a slam that nobody heard. It's not going to be that same Suffo slam. It's not going to be the gratuitous, easy slam that where I stop and I play the guitar part and then everybody comes in because they're supposed to. I always look for that visceral arrangement that's going to make you do it in a way that, like I said, no one else has done it. And sometimes, again, that's what the chances you take. It might have fell flat, I feel maybe it did, because sometimes these things take a little while to set in, and right now people are slam thirsty and slam hungry, and that album is not in particularly slam packed. But I think in the view of history, it'll do better, just like most of these things do. It usually takes a Pyrexia 10 years for it to catch on, a Pyrexia album.
Takes 10 years.
Yeah, you were saying earlier, like,
for a Pyrexia album to catch on. So
yeah, like what Will was saying earlier, like you were saying how people called out Sermon for being that Suffocation knockoff, and it's like it doesn't. Now you listen to it in context. Yeah. It's its own thing. Sure. And it's good. Yeah. It's a really good album. Yeah. Like I really like that album.
Takes 10 years for people to stop asking where Daryl Wagner is.
Yeah, we gotta get the vigil. We got a candle. If you guys want to ask why there's a candle at every merch table, that's for the hope of Daryl Wagner. For him to come back and do backups.
One day he's coming back.
He's gonna come back one day and do backups.
Yeah, he's waiting for his grandkids to graduate college. So sick. All right, so that brings us kind of like up till today, man. We went through this whole journey of Pyrexia. What or if anything, is there anything that you really felt like you learned in those old days of just formulating bands and getting started in the music business or the death metal scene, playing shows, working with people, that you retained up until today and that helped you in your personal life, your job, other areas? Like what did the death metal scene teach you as a young man that you retained?
Be humble, be thankful, be grateful, and realize the blessings around you. That if you death metal is so unique that as a kid you can't realize it. You think it's just normal life. You think, especially for me, people put it down. I actually, even to this day, I've always hid it from the job. You can't explain to somebody, especially at my age, I do death metal 3 times a week, and what are you talking about? That's impossible to explain. Your family don't get it. Your friends outside of death metal don't get it. I don't know how else to explain it, but in retrospect, and I'm glad it's before I died, I realized it's something I'm grabbing onto, that you realize it's like, that's what I got out of being young. Like, this is fucking special. Appreciate it, grab into it. It's not gonna go away. Again, I'll give you something that Trevor said, because I don't know whose conversation he had this with, but he mentioned death metal is a genre. It's like BB King is like, it was 80 or something at the time. He's like, does anybody ask when BB King's going to be done playing blues? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Why is it like I got to be done playing music, death metal, at a certain age or time? Or because especially back then, everybody's parents, I think even his, would put like a time on it. When you're going to be done with this and you're going to move on with real life.
Yeah.
This is real life. I mean, I can't, I'm sorry if you don't, I don't know what to tell you. This is real life.
So on that note, do you see, when you recall all this that you've been through with Pyrexia, I mean, you really, a man of your age that has a child and his own family and has been through so much, and you can trace Pyrexia back to when you were really a kid, when you were a teenager.
Child,
you know what I mean? So you can see all these different eras of Pyrexia and lineups and think about the shows you played, and you're really reliving your whole life.
Sure.
I mean, even when Pyrexia was on hiatus or paused for a year or two here or there, I mean, you always come back to it.
It's never been on pause for me. You know what I'm saying? I've always been doing something. There's not a day, I can honestly say this, there's not a day that goes by, probably since ever, that I didn't do something for or involved with Pyrexia or with Pyrexia. It's just it. It's embedded. It's just it. That's just it. All day, actually. Even now, I wake up, I take care of my family. As soon as that's done, I'm right to Pyrexia. That's
phenomenal, man. There's not a lot of people that could say it, because I could say that I've been involved in death metal for 20 odd years, but not in the same band,
right?
Not waving the same flag. You know what I mean? That's really special.